We're live. Yay! It's always kind of a big surprise when you use new technology. And I'm using new technology, so I'm not sure if I'm looking at you or where I'm looking. So, I love leading by example of messing up for all of you so that you feel so much more comfortable and confident when you go to do these things. Thanks for joining us this evening. I have invited boot campers to join me to talk about hiring associates. And really, I love to think of it more as recruiting. So when we look at, it's the same thing with practice members. If you look at, I'm going to go and get some new practice members, it's like, I always think of like a net, and you're going to throw a net over them and pull them in, which means they have no responsibility. You're doing all of the work. That sounds terrible. If we look at hiring, then it's kind of the same thing. Like, we're going out and looking. I like to think of it more as recruiting. And we have some athletes here with us that got recruited in college to play a sport, in which case when the scout was there, that athlete showed up as their very best, just like the scout showed up as their very best. If you're a heavily recruited athlete, then the scouts also have to bring it in order for you to say yes to their team. And so I think of it exactly the same way when it comes to hiring staff, including associates. So what we're going to do this evening is I'm going to go through and share with all of you what I think are best practices for recruiting an awesome associate. And then I have asked my boot campers, invited them to ask any questions. If you have questions, you can post them in the comment section and I'll do my best to answer them. So the very first thing is to make sure that you are operating your business with high profitability. So if you follow Mike Michalowicz or you're in the boot camp, then you know your gross income, you take 5% for owner's dividend, 50% for owner's pay, 15% for taxes, and 30% for overhead. So if you look at your numbers and you can't fit a salary in there for an associate, get cranking and start saving so that you already have that income when you bring on the associate. Now, obviously, the design is that your business isn't going to stay the same volume when you bring on an associate. But when you're first looking to hire, I really encourage you to look and make sure that you can fit that associate salary into your 30% overhead. So Tiffany, Christy, and Jess Bruin also joined me from the boot camp. So welcome, ladies. We got started and we're going to keep rolling along. So that's number one. Number two, I encourage you to look at hiring an associate as an extension of you. I didn't say as your clone. We don't need two of you. Like, no offense, but we don't. Every single person is their own being. And as chiropractors, what we do in life is to help individuals tap into their optimum potential. Well, if I hire somebody and I want them to be just like me, that's not their optimum potential. And that certainly squashes their authenticity. So I would encourage you instead to look for that associate doctor who's going to be a great team member. For me, a great team member was somebody who had really awesome clinical skills. I never looked to hire an associate to grow my business. Let me be very clear about, I got it, darn Clubhouse. Oh, okay. Sorry. Is everyone muted? I'm getting two voices. Okay, thanks for that. So I will mute everybody. Hey, Michelle, is that better? Is that better now? Are you still getting two voices? You can pop in and let me know. So here's what I mean by your associate isn't there to grow your business. So most associates are relatively new to practice, right? They've either just graduated or maybe they've been in their own practice and now they're coming over to yours. So what is it that they're likely really good at? Yeah, the clinical stuff, right? Like taking x-rays and adjusting and doing exams and notes and all of those kinds of things. So why in the world would we bring on somebody who's brand new to your practice? They probably have no skills for the most part in marketing, certainly in high level communication, representing your brand in the community. Like, that doesn't make sense. Like, if you're going to represent my brand, you better have some rock star skill levels, because I've worked my butt off to build my brand and to have a reputation. And I'm assuming it's the same for all of you in practice. So instead of this idea of I'm going to bring in my associate and then they have all this responsibility to go out and get new practice members, that's, like, no offense, I think that's nuts. Like, you don't see that in any other industry. Instead, you see that the person who best represents the brand, you go out, and now is your opportunity to go out and do talks in your community. Now is the time to be on advisory, like be an advisory board member to different groups and organizations around your town, to network with other business owners and high influential people. Now is your opportunity to go out in your community and spread your word. I didn't say now go out and do screenings. Like, there are lots of ways to get out and meet our community, and screenings is just one of them. So you go out and represent your brand. You make sure that you're up here doing high level activities that no one else in your organization can do. Again, Mike Michalowicz in Clockwork talks about do, decide, delegate, and design. So when you have an associate, you freed up some of that time in order to better design your systems, in order to better design your marketing, in order to better design even your personal life. I find a lot of people hire an associate because they're completely burned out because they haven't taken a rest along the way. That's fine to do. Just please be really clear on your intention to step away from practice when you bring on that doctor. Most associates are really looking for a mentor. So if that's not what you are thinking of hiring an associate for, because you want to pass on your legacy, because you want to train them up to see our profession continue to grow and flourish, then be truthful on the front end. Might as well start with the truth, because we're always going to end for it. And for those of you who are looking for an associate position, please make sure you ask the doctor, how do you plan to mentor me? Like, if they say they want to mentor you, ask, what does that look like? Is that weekly training? Is that me following you? Is that you getting out of Dodge and now I'm basically running this practice? Just find out so everyone can move forward in honesty and integrity. So make sure that you have the mindset of recruiting. Make sure that you have that associate doctor doing the things that they're really skilled to do. Here's another thing. If you're looking for an associate position, please take on the mindset that it's your practice. So guess what? Every owner that is on here with me tonight, they have scrubbed toilets. They have vacuumed. They have cleaned cobwebs. They have done all of the tasks that you as an associate may think you're too good to do. Treat it like your own practice. And I promise you, before long, you'll be in the driver's seat, either in your own practice or perhaps in a higher level position within the organization you're being hired for. You're not too good to do any task, I promise you. Let me also say this. If you're looking for an associate position, it is not the owner's responsibility to create a position with a paycheck that funds your ideal lifestyle. Like, if you took out tons and tons of student loans and you have a tremendous amount of debt, and now you have to make a bunch of money, and the position they're hiring for is $50,000, like, that's the position they're hiring for. I would encourage you to level up your value in the marketplace and ask them, like, all right, so 50,000 is my base pay. What do I need to do, and how do I need to perform and produce in this business in order to generate $75,000? Because that's the kind of money that I need. And then your owner doctor should be able to look at, like, their daily success sheet, be able to look at their numbers and be like, hey, if you produce this kind of work, if you can do this, and here's my list of for reactivations, you bring in all of these people and they stay paying me for, absolutely, I would love to pay you $75,000. And I know every single doctor represented on here with me tonight, if you crank the work, they're happy to pay you. So the last thing about recruiting before I open it up to the other doctors who've joined me to answer their questions and to field their comments is this book, The Zigzag Principle. Rich Christensen is the author. He's a good friend of mine, and I had the pleasure of coaching with him. I met him through the Wealth Factory. So thanks, Garrett. And this is one of the things that Rich taught me about hiring people, and now I want to share it with you. So get this book, go to page 75 and 76. And on page 75 and 76, you'll see a bunch of attributes. And these attributes really help you determine values. So what you would do is, let's say that you're pretty confident you want to hire a female associate. Let's just say, like, no offense to the guys, it's just an example. And so I would encourage you to think of, like, who are 3 female chiropractors that you know that you would love to have as an associate. I'm not saying they're available. I'm just saying, like, there are 3 that you would love. So if I look at my guests, like, one would be Dr. Erin, then Dr. Liz, and Dr. Amanda. Like, those are the 3 women. If I could hire an associate, I would want them in my practice. No, none of them are available to be associates. So then I'm going to go through page 75 and 76, and all of the attributes that Erin has, I'm going to put an E next to them. All of the attributes that Liz has, I'll put an L, and all of them that Amanda has, I'll put an A. And then I go through and I see which attributes are the most common and the people that I would want to hire. Now, those become the top 10 attributes that I'm looking for in my potential associate. Now, what you want to do is, with those attributes, write your definition of what is that attribute. Like, if family is a value and one of the attributes and values from that, then what does that look like? What is family to you? Does that have to mean like mom, dad, husband, wife, kids, or does family have something much different in your world? So whatever it is, you're going to define it. Then you're going to come up with 3 questions that you would ask your potential candidate. This also would go for CAs, to find out if you are in value alignment with that particular thing: family, time off, vacations, money, whatever it happens to be. And you're not going to ask, so let's say one of the attributes is integrity. I promise this is not the question to ask. Do you have any integrity? Like, who's going to say no? No, actually, I'm a complete schmuck, but please hire me. No, like, be a little bit more creative. And I recognize all of this takes time, but you always want to hire slow and fire fast. Like, this is someone who's going to represent your brand. I think it's definitely worth your time and investigation to do the right thing. So the last thing, and this is about hiring associates or CAs, please make it kind of difficult to get access to you. So if you put an ad out, whether it's on one of the local job boards in your community, or it's an online site, an Indeed or a Monster, or maybe it's at one of the college websites, looking for a CA or looking for an associate, be really clear about what you want them to do. Like, if you were hiring for a job in my brand, then you would have to have a cover letter. Honestly, I don't really care what the cover letter is. I want to see, can you do it? And if you don't know how, I want to see, like, do you do the work to find out? So a cover letter, a resume. And if it's one you just created like randomly on Indeed, I can tell you it's going to end up right there in my trash can. I want to see you're putting forth some effort. So a cover letter, a resume, and then a video. And then you'll have an option of 10 different questions that you can choose. And I want to hear from 3. I want you to answer 3 of them in a video. Now, the cool thing about this is you get to see that person. You get to see how well do they communicate. Do they stutter and stammer? Not that that's a terrible thing, but that may not be that may be a qualification that you're looking for to represent your brand. The other thing a video does is, do they know how to use technology? There isn't a chiropractic office on this planet that doesn't need a team member to be able to use some technology, a simple camera. As well, do they know how to be able to send that? You know what? I don't really care if they can't, but I certainly don't want them reaching out to me saying, I don't know how to send a video, so I'm not sure what to do. you are not getting hired in my organization because I do not do any hand holding. You better figure that stuff out on your own. So having these hoops that they jump through makes it really, really easy for you. So let's say that you put the ad out and a month goes by and you get some resumes, but none of them have all of like the cover letter, the video, and whatnot. It doesn't mean you change your standard and now just look for who has the most of those things. No, set your standard, stick by them. You'll be so glad that you did. All right, so from my boot campers, let me look at these real quickly. Nancy said she can't connect, having time to be able to work on your business instead of in it. Yes, you have to work on your business, not just in it. And I'm assuming the volume thing got worked out. So any questions from my boot campers about hiring? And I am going to try and figure out how to, there, now we can see your face, Erin. I figured it out. All right, any questions? Yeah, Amanda, you'll just have to unmute yourself. Let me mute myself and I'm going to.
All right. Can you hear me? Awesome. So we are looking to hire an associate in probably the next 3 to 6 months. We'd love them to be in our office. So the biggest thing that I'm wondering is, being that we've been owners 12 years, done everything from the base up, janitorial to the doctor, what is one of the best ways to incentivize so that, yes, they're getting, obviously we want to have a base salary, but we want to be able to hang a carrot and incentivize them to do better. And yes, very willing to pay if they're helping us grow and they're part of our team and what we say is part of our family. But with doctors, it might be different than CAs. Do you have any suggestions on some of the ways to structure, I guess, paying an associate? Oh, you're still muted.
That's a really awesome question. And I think it's one that comes up with CAs or massage therapists or anyone on our team. And, I had always thought, honestly, that money was a great motivator for everybody. It's not. It's not. I mean, even if there's somebody who complains they don't have enough money, that really has more to do with their thinking about money than it actually does, like money in hand. And I remember working with Rich on this, and he's like, it's a terrible incentivizer. And I was like, shut the front door, really? He's like, yeah, it's way better instead to, number one, ask them, like, what are things that you want to experience? What are things that you would love to pay for yourself, but you just like simply don't buy them for yourself? And really get to know your associates and your teams and find out, what is it that they want? Like, what does their dream life look like? What are little gifts along the way that you can set as an incentive? It's really important to have several levels that you're measuring in order for the reward. So you want to have a cultural goal every single month. You obviously want to have an income goal every month, and you want to have a systems or procedural goal. And in order for the prize or the reward to be given, all of those have to be met: cultural, procedural, and income. Our numbers, really and truly, like new practice members, adjustments, all of that, it's fine. But I have yet to see that you can take adjustments or numbers and put them on this. You can't, right? So if we can't take that to the bank to pay for our lifestyle, I think it's not really a very good indicator or measure for your team members. Now, being able to know that each new practice member, your case average is $2,000 or $2,500 or whatever it happens to be, or using those as markers is fine, but I would not bonus just on those numbers. So in terms of like great ideas, like what's something really fun that you guys can go and do as a team? Is there a bill that you could start paying for them on their, on their behalf, as long as their volume stays at a certain level? Like, as long as your volume, you're adjusting this many people every week, which translates into this much money, then we'll pick up your cell phone bill for the months that you hit this. Or, it could be like, maybe look at paying for part of their car payment, or something other than just like, here's a bunch of cash. I was really surprised to learn of this. And, sometimes I learn new things. I'm like, are you sure? And then I always have to ask myself, like, okay, so he's had $19 million plus companies. So I think I can listen to his advice and take it. And now I'm offering the same thing to you. So I would find out from your associates, how do they want to be incentivized? And, many times what people are really looking for as well is just help, is honest to goodness help, and your time and your devotion, and that mentorship. So don't discount the value of that as well. Great question. Did that answer it, Amanda? Okay, cool.
Yeah.
And do any of you have any other questions? I'm often asked as well, like, where do we find a great associate? Well, where do they usually hang out? They're in school. So I would go to schools and I would get to know them. I would look at different, chiropractic groups and get to know them and watch who they are, and who speaks up, and who is, who are the student leaders of like the International Chiropractic Association or the Blair Society, like who is already stepping into leadership even on campus. And you can easily find that out. And so instead of just sitting back and waiting and hoping that they're looking at an ad on their school, whiteboard or whatever those job boards are called, like if it were me, I'd recruit and I would go and find who are leaders. And I would also ask, like, most of us know at least a couple of professors at schools or those in leadership, whether it's, a president of a school or a vice president, and find out, like, if you were hiring an associate from your graduating class, your next graduating class, who are the top 2 that you would consider? Because remember, every president of the school wants to see their students succeed, right? So of course they're going to have names that they would recommend. So that's where I would go, and that's what I would look for. Those who are already taking on positions of leadership, and not just positions of leadership, but really and truly like invested in the health and well-being of our profession. Anyone else? Tiffany. So I have to mute myself, Tiff.
Okay, so you can hear me, right? Okay, so I have a question. I am looking for a CA in the next 2.5 months, and then I will be looking for an associate as well. What do you advise in terms of timeline? Like, when should you put something out? Like, sooner and just kind of trickle through it and just see what happens, even though you're not ready to bring someone on today? Or what's the timeline in terms of like posting that ad or reaching out or starting to be aggressive about it?
So at the beginning of this, I talked about making sure that it fits in, the 5%, 50%, 15%, and 30%, and have, if it were me, I'd like to have at least 3 months of their pay already saved up. That gives them a little bit of a runway. That gives me a little bit of a runway in order for them to be trained up and earning an income for me and be a profit center in my practice instead of just a liability. So I also am a strong believer in always be recruiting. If it were me and I was hiring in a practice right now, here's who I would look for: assistant managers at high-end restaurants, because they've been used to tons of like customer service, right? They're used to having to manage a lot of things that's going on. And if you've never worked as a waiter or waitress, I'm telling you, like, food service is a great training ground in order to like think fast on your feet and to plan ahead. Like, I remember, I'd have like the decaf and the caffeinated coffee and the water and the iced tea. I'm like, I'm coming, right? Because every time I have to walk back and forth from the kitchen, I've now lost time and therefore money if you're a waitress. So an assistant manager is great because they probably haven't been making as much as a manager, and they've been used to being under somebody else's authority and direction. So if it were me, I would be looking for assistant managers. I would find ones that I really love. I would invite them to interview and tell them, like, I don't have a place in my practice right now, but I'm moving aggressively towards that. And I'd love for you to come for a pre-hire interview and just see what's the worst thing that could happen. You call them up in 45 days instead of hiring them right then. So in terms of the time frame, I also encourage you to look at, like, what would I have a CA do? Make sure you're hiring the right person. So many times I hear chiropractors saying that they want to hire a CA, and then I'm like, oh, well, what is she going to do? Oh, she's going to do my social media, and she's going to do my billing, and she's going to do all of these things. Eek! Like, jack of all trades, master at none. I definitely am a fan of whoever does your billing, that is what they do. And remember, your biller, their job isn't to do your billing, it's to get you paid. So if it's just to do their billing, then it's your responsibility, according to the job description, to chase down money. No. You're hired for the billing position, and your responsibility is to make sure I get paid at the maximum amount that is available for the services that I provide. And no matter who it is, they're responsible for sales on your team. If they sit in the back, they're still responsible for sales on your team as much as the person out front. So then, a front desk CA is completely different than a social media marketing person. They're not going to have the same skill set, the same focus, or probably the same personality. So I would encourage you to really get clear about what tasks do you want this person to do, and then look at, like, and this is why I love the daily success sheet, is look at the tasks that you would have them do. Are those tasks busy work? Because if you don't know for sure that they're leading to greater service, care, and profitability in your practice, then now you've actually just created a liability and another expense, because now you have them doing busy work when the busy work wasn't making you any money when you did it. So just make sure you're hiring the right person and that you know what you want them to do. It's totally fine to have several part-time people. But I am not a fan of the front desk person that does everything. I don't think that that's a winning formula, especially for a practice that has expansion and growth on their mind. Did that answer your question, Tiff? I think, Liz, you had your hand up, so I'll mute myself.
Just give an example of a cultural goal that you guys set, like, monthly, and you're still muted.
So a cultural goal, like, we're in a hurry to serve. That would be a cultural goal. A cultural goal is, we always show up early. A cultural goal could be that, not that the customer is always right, but we esteem others higher than ourselves, meaning, like, we're here to serve them, the preciousness of others. Where a systems goal could be like, your new practice member log, that this month, the new practice member log is completed for every single new practice member. Or it could be the system goal could be that every day, every single practice, like, every single team member asks for a referral and follows up with a referral gift packet. So income, cultural, and system. Great question. Anyone else? Questions? Get this book. It's a great book. Anyone? What about, Amanda?
So another follow-up, because you brought up, which I love the idea of looking into school leadership roles. When I think about my graduating class, there's definitely people I would be interested in bringing in, and other people that I know didn't, step into those roles and take them seriously. So I question work ethic, all of that. But now, what would you say, or is there anywhere specific that we could look or think about if you're looking for someone who possibly You said at the beginning, most associates are looking for a mentor, or they're people who are also burnt out. So I would assume they're burnt out, they've practiced, they were by themselves. Now they want to go in somewhere so that we get time off, they get time off, the train keeps running, like we're still seeing people. How do I target the people who are looking for almost like the partners, like we would be their partners so they can get a break and we could get a break?
You know, as a chiropractic community, we're a pretty small community, right? I mean, there aren't that many of us. And so I think everyone within a town, within an area, we all kind of know how each other is doing, right? Like who's got the big practice, who's got the small practice. So if it were me, I would reach out to those who maybe you've heard they're not doing that well. And just because they're not doing well in practice doesn't mean they won't be a great associate. Like, I think the best associates are those who honestly have like stunk it up business wise. My associate had his own practice, the one who ended up buying my practice. He had his own practice in Ohio and wanted to move to Michigan. And he was off the charts clinically, like unbelievable clinical doctor, like loved all that stuff. And for those of you who know me well, know that my jam is definitely business. So I was so appreciative of his skill level, and he was so appreciative of mine. So I didn't hire him to grow my business. I hired him to care well for my practice members. And, as the owner doctor, when the associate is there, my first responsibility, new practice members, in terms of consult, like no exams, not shooting films. I'm not doing any of that stuff because they have that skill level. But consultation, reported findings, extended consultations, that's where the owner doctor needs to invest their time in building those relationships. And look, especially those of you who are in the boot camp, we can't do anyone else's thinking for them, right? So this idea that, well, I don't want people to think I don't care about them and that I'm just serving them for their first and second visit and then I'm passing them off. They're not going to care depending on the kind of attitude that you have about your associate. I'm forever amazed at how many owner doctors get in competition with their associates and they fear that, oh my gosh, what if my practice members want to see my associate instead of me? I'm like, hot dog, I'd say it's a victory lap for you. Like, why would you bring in somebody who you don't want your practice members to see? That doesn't make sense. So like when I introduced my associates, I'd be like, this is Dr. Amanda. She is my chiropractor. She is the best on the planet. You are going to love being adjusted by her. I am so thankful I get to be in her hands and have her as my doctor. Like, why would I be like, actually, she's terrible, but I hired her anyway to take care of you because I want some time off. Like, that's awful. And none of us in our right mind would say that, but I think we can have that energy about associates. And that's, I don't know, have your head examined if you're having those kind of thoughts that I'm afraid people will want my associate instead of me. Like, do a victory lap. Congratulations on an awesome hire. Enjoy some time off and get yourself into a design mode. And if you don't know how, ask me. I do. Any other questions? Anyone? Wow, we are at 33 minutes. And I really encourage all of you that are looking to hire an associate or even a CA, remember we were all there at one point. I don't believe in riding your associates hard and putting them away wet. Like that doesn't speak well of you. I always wanted my associates when they talk to other chiropractors, for other chiropractors to be like, dang, I'd like to sell my practice and work for her because you guys get treated so well. And it's like such an awesome place to work that the culture there is just one that just breeds joy and happiness and harmony and success. Like I would encourage you all to really adopt what does your brand represent, not only in your community, but within our profession as well. And make it that everyone wants to have, you have a waiting list of people who want to come and work for you, whether in a CA position or in an associate position. It's only going to be better for you if that's the kind of culture that you create. And we all have the ability to do that. Cool. Anything else? Nancy said, not looking for an associate, looking more for someone to come in as an independent contractor to rent space and then eventually take over my practice. What is the best way to pursue this? Have been looking for 6 years. Well, I would say, Nancy, you got to recruit, my friend, and be more aggressive. I think so. Let me just let me be very clear that the IRS tells us what constitutes an associate, an employee, and what constitutes an independent contractor. And you don't get to make that up. Uncle Sam did that for us. Oh, so nice. And so I have it written right here. So there are several different, so let me just tell you this. Here are the consequences of misclassifying an employee. Classifying an employee as an independent contractor with no reasonable basis for doing so makes employers liable for employment taxes. Certain employers that can provide a reasonable basis for not treating a worker as an employee may have the opportunity to avoid paying employment taxes. In addition, the voluntary classification settlement program offers certain eligible businesses the option to reclassify their workers as employees with partial relief from federal employment taxes. The IRS can help employers determine the status of their workers by using Form SS8, Determination of Worker Status for Purposes of Federal Employment Taxes and Income Tax Withholding, Publication 15A. Workers who believe an employer improperly classified them as an independent contractor can use Form 8919 to figure and report the employee's share of uncollected Social Security and Medicare taxes due on their compensation. So I would encourage you, before you hire an employee, an associate versus an independent contractor, ask your accountant what that needs to look like. And maybe lots of people have gotten away with it. It's kind of like billing gossip in our profession. Oh, if you're a cash practice, you don't have to use CPT codes or diagnosis codes. That's a big fat negative on that one. Like, I'm just letting you know that is not true. So instead of believing the gossip mill that exists within our profession, I encourage you to ask someone who truly knows. And I would refer you to the irs.gov website or ask your accountant. Please have a tax strategist, not just an accountant who just simply files your taxes. The federal government has plenty of money. They give it out whenever you want it, depending on who you are. So I would encourage you to try and keep more of it. So someone who is an independent contractor and will eventually take over your practice. Well, the first place that I would look in that kind of situation is someone local who already has a practice that wants to kind of merge their practice with yours. And Amanda, that kind of goes back to what you had asked as well. Somebody who, maybe they can't make rent. Maybe their lease is up and they don't like their landlord and they would want to come in, bring their patient base, and kind of like turn over the responsibility of owning the practice to you and show up as a doctor. Those are great situations, I think, and it's a win-win. The person who hasn't been doing well, at least they'll stay in the game. So Nance, I would encourage you the same thing that I answered for Amanda. Start recruiting, and know that just because we have a post up at a school or a state association, it's one of hundreds or thousands. And so it's important to differentiate ourselves. And you can easily do that through the same way that we would grow a practice is get into conversations with individuals and find out who's looking for the position that you have, and start making those connections and let every single person know, hey, I've got this position available. This is who I'm looking for. If you know them, send them my way. I'd like to create a win-win situation. Does So I hope that helps. Thanks to my boot campers who showed up to party with me on this Wednesday night. I cannot wait to see who you add to your team. If you're watching this and you are looking for an associate position and you'd like the opportunity to meet one of these doctors, I'd encourage you write down their name, send them a private Facebook message. If you're friends with me, you can message me with them. So like, let's say, I feel like this is, like the Brady Bunch, like you can send me a private message and include Aaron Jacob Stagner. And then in that message, you have 3 of us. And then therefore it wouldn't get like lost in the shuffle. And I can help facilitate that as well. If you are looking for an associate and you are in the boot camp, we have amazing boot campers who are looking for associate positions, like people who joined the boot camp as a student. I would say in my book, you're moving to the front of the line because you already get how important it is to put yourself in a community of badass chiropractors who are making a huge impact in their community. Joanne said, thanks for the info. Sorry I couldn't make it to the entire thing. I'm looking for an associate, Gilbert, Arizona. There you go. She put exactly where she's looking for one as well. If you'd be so gracious as to take just 2 seconds and hit share and share this to your page, then we can bring people together and I can say thank you for doing that. So have a nice evening. Talk to you later. Bye.